Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you have to can you hear yourself okay on your headphones?
Yes, I can.
Hey, what's up, guys? Battleborn Media Networks. We are doing a very special edition show today to talk about suicide awareness and suicide prevention. Now, the reason why we picked this show, this date to do this show, is because this is actually the date that I lost my best friend and cousin, David, who we have on the slideshow right behind us. It was on January 2nd, 2010 to suicide. So ever since then, suicide has been an issue that has been near and dear to my heart, and I've tried to help out with anything that I can do around the community. And we have a lot of people here that it's near and dear to their heart also. Danny's here, obviously. He has some stories. We have Wendy Sharp here. We have our under sheriff, Justin Ames, who the last time we had him on the show, he had mentioned that if we ever do something for suicide awareness or suicide prevention and do a show and want to talk about it, it's something that's near and dear to his heart because he has some stories as well that happened throughout his life. So I wanted to start off the show by telling a story. Wendy here is Luke Anderson's mom, and Luke Anderson was a good friend of mine throughout high school. Knew him since he first moved to Elko, and we lost him to the same cause. But one of the, I guess we'll start it kind of with a funny story, if you will. He knew David as well. The way that I met Luke is Luke was living here out in Spring Creek, I believe. He was living in Elko, but he was always hanging out with his cousin who lived in Spring Creek, but he was on our all-star team, so he didn't know a lot of people in Elko. But that was during the summer. And then the first day of school, he had nowhere to go to lunch. He was the new kid, and he looked like a pretty boy, as he always did. He had on I still remember, I'll never forget it. He had on those brand new K-Swiss shoes, bright white K-Swiss shoes, and you couldn't get K-Swiss shoes in Elko at that time. So he sees me by the Eagle, and hey, Pedro, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And he asked me, hey, where are you going to lunch? And I said, well, me and David, we always go over to Cimarron, and we have a burger. They had this deal for $2. You get a burger, fries, and a soda. And I said, if you want, just meet us down at the bottom of the hill, and you can come. And David had a single cab truck. So we get there, and David gets to his truck, and Luke starts getting in, and David's like, what is this? And poor Luke, the look on his face, and he's like, you got gas money? So I'm like, don't listen to him. Get in the truck. So he's like, nah, I'm just playing. Get in. So we took Luke to lunch, I think like 2 or 3 days. But after that, knowing Luke, it did not take him long to make friends. And after that, he had his own friends to go to lunch with, and so that's how him and David, they were friends throughout high school as well. I could tell tons of stories about them and about me and Luke and fun times that we had together, but that was one of the stories that'll always stick out about David and Luke, which is why I'm glad that you're here today, because like I said, ever since I've been in broadcasting, I always dedicate a show to David on this date. Whether it's just a Facebook post or whether it's one of my radio shows. And now with this, we always do something. We did something last year, so we'll continue to do it in honor of David. So I'll let Wendy and Justin kind of introduce themselves. Wendy, if you want to let us know any stories that you may have and what your involvement is in suicide prevention.
Well, thanks, Pedro, and everybody else here today for talking about this. This is such an important topic to me. And I guess the first thing I want to start out with, Oh, well, my name is Wendy Charlebois, and I am the survivor of my son's suicide. And when I say survivor, it means that when someone dies by suicide, they leave a lot of people in their wake. And we call ourselves survivors because it is such a painful, painful loss, to lose a child especially, but anybody that dies by suicide, it leaves a lot of questions, it leaves a lot of anxiety, it leaves a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, depression, all of those negative emotions, to whoever loved that person, whoever had contact with that person, to who was a friend to that person, like you were, Pedro. And I just want to mention that Pedro did the music for Luke's final gathering, and I really appreciated that so much. But I am here to raise awareness about suicide. But the first thing I want to say is that I know that there may be people listening right now that are having a difficult time. We just came out of the holidays. We're still in the throes of this pandemic. People don't know what to do. People have been isolated for a long time. And there may be some of you who are listening right now that are feeling really down and sad and alone. And I just want to let you know that those feelings will go away sometimes. And what we want to do is, I want to give you hope that there is help available if you are feeling that way. I don't want anybody to listen to this to get the idea that there is no hope. There is. Even in Elko County, that we often think that we don't have a whole lot of resources, but we do. We have more resources than people know about. And I just want to let everybody know that there is hope available, there is help available right around the corner. And or if you know of someone that is really struggling, please give them that message that there is hope. Sit with them a while, listen to them, give them hope, because that is what oftentimes people who die by suicide, they lose that hope. And it's sometimes an impulsive act, sometimes it's a planned act, but that's the message I want to give today, is that there is hope for people who are struggling. And I'm sure we've all struggled at some point in our life. And sometimes reaching out to a friend, sometimes reaching out to a coworker, sometimes reaching out to a physician or your chiropractor or anybody that you sometimes that reaching out is really what makes you feel better. So I just want to give a phone number right off the bat, and that's the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that number is 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255. And we also have local numbers that I will give throughout our conversation. So that's what I wanted to start out with. And I can certainly talk about my experiences, but maybe Justin would like to, jump in here and...
Okay. Well, we'll have our undersheriff, Elko County Undersheriff, Justin Ames. Like I said, he really wanted to be a part of this, so we of course called him and let him know that we were going to do this on today. So thank you for coming, Justin. I know you said you weren't feeling that well, so appreciate you making the effort and getting here.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys inviting me. Just a little bit about the reason that I'm passionate about being here today is, one, my career. Law enforcement is always one of the highest suicide rates of any profession. So I hope that if any of my coworkers or any of the people listening or watching, I'm always available to them. I'm always available to anybody. The sheriff is always available to anybody. Give us a call. You know what I mean? There's great lines, but there's also us. We're available. The deputies, I know they're out and about. They respond to suicidal calls all the time. And I'd like to say thank you to all of them that are listening, because they prevent a lot of suicides. They show up, and we don't get a lot of actual training as far as being counselors, but they do their darndest to make sure that they can, anytime that they can provide any type of intervention, they do that. And they've done some amazing things over the last few years. Personally, for me, it goes both work and my personal life. I lost my uncle to suicide, which was my mom's little brother. Somebody I'd always looked up to, spent a lot of time on the ranch in Wyoming with him, and those types of things. I know it's hard for the anniversary, so I can't imagine what you're going through today. Lost a coworker when I was a fairly new guy out in Wells. Somebody I really looked up to. He was a detective, And the thing is he was one of those guys that was always super happy. You know what I mean? It's just, you never see it coming. Same thing. I lost one of my close friends, always super happy. He was coaching his kids' teams and just seemed like one of the happiest guys ever. So sometimes people are hurting on the inside and you don't even know what's coming around. So I can keep going, of course, with a lot of my law enforcement stuff. It's just been something that I've gotten to be very passionate about, because in law enforcement, you want to be proactive in these types of things, and you want to do everything you can to prevent any type of tragedy, and you get to see the profound effect it has on the survivors' lives. So I'm very sorry for your loss. I know how hard it is, because I've lived through it, and I've been around the survivor portions of it. So one of the things that I'd like to talk about is I've been through a lot of classes on this type of thing, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, that was a very selfish act. That's actually a misconception. It's not a selfish act. These people have hit a point in their life where they truly believe that the world is better off without them a lot of times. And so that's something I think it's important that we reach out to those people and let them know that we're there for them, we care for them, and this world is in fact a better place with them in it. And I think if we can get that message out to people, and then, talk about it till it becomes normal. When you have tragedy in your life, reach out to somebody, talk about it till it becomes normal. And dealing with grief, one of the things that I've learned throughout dealing with all of these things throughout my law enforcement career and throughout my personal life is grief. The best way I've ever had it described to me is it's like tidal waves, right? So when it first starts happening, the waves hit you hard, they hit you often, and they're huge. But as time goes along, it really does begin to help heal the pain. And the waves get smaller and fewer apart, and smaller and fewer apart. The thing that people don't realize about that is, out of the clear blue, something can trigger it, and here comes a giant wave that hits you like the first ones, right? So those are the times that if you have something going on, please just reach out to somebody. There's somebody to talk to. And that's the thing, is talk about it till it becomes normal, and don't be afraid. And if you have somebody that you think may be suicidal in your life, one of the things in the classes that I've gone through, they talk about, and I wish I would have gone to these classes earlier. They talk about, asking people, are you okay? Are you okay? Well, the classes I've been through, they teach you that the best way to go about it is to be bold and be forthcoming and say, are you thinking about committing suicide? You have to ask that question, that specific question, and it's hard. In the classes I've gone through, you have to practice it with partners in the classroom, and it's hard. It really is. But if you can be that courageous person to sit down with somebody and say, are you thinking about this? And then say, I'm asking because I care for you and I want you to be here with me. And man, that can just make such a profound effect in someone's life. And I encourage anybody that's listening to A, reach out, and B, if you think that there's somebody that's in that position, reach out to them and have that difficult conversation and let them know that the world is a better place with them in it.
Okay, well, thank you, Justin. We'll be talking with him a lot more, because I know he brought some resources and statistics, but Danny's got a couple of stories as well, too, so...
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a touchy subject. I was friends with Luke as well. We played a lot of softball together, and we jerseys with his initials on it. So I spent a lot of time with Luke. Luke was a lot of fun to play softball with, and just a heck of a guy. So I just wanted to start off by saying that to Wendy.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was, like I said, an amazing guy. I loved Luke. But it's the couple things that Justin was saying there. First of all, my first experience with suicide was a cousin of mine in the early '90s. He was quite a bit older than me. I was still just in junior high, And you know, it seemed to be he seemed to have everything. He was doing fine, and you know, he had a good job. He, you know, had a good wife, just had a new kid, and then just out of the blue, you know, he took his own life, which was, as a junior high kid, you don't really know how to grasp that and take that, and so that was my first experience with that, and then my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he took his own life while he was incarcerated, and like you said, Justin, that was kind of where he was at. Was, you know, he felt that the world was going to be a better place without him, which is absolutely not the case, because my wife and other family members, you know, deal with that on a daily basis, but I think after that, you know, I did exactly what you said, Justin. I placed blame. I really did. I you know, unjustly, you know, was mad and said some things to my wife, which, you know, I look back on now, which was not appropriate. And you know, I've kind of came to terms with that over the years, and it really started to happen when a friend of mine, classmate of mine, by the name of Brandon Meacham, former Marine, spent time in Afghanistan, came back, got married, had a beautiful little daughter, and then he came down with some PTSD, and you know, just you know, out of nowhere, Christmas time, actually took his life, and that's I think at that point in time is when I started to really come to terms with that. This is something that you know, that needs to be addressed, and like you guys said, just there needs to be outlets, and you need to ask those questions, because whether people appear to be doing well or not, sometimes you just don't know. And my you know, I've dealt with it recently within my immediate family, and when it comes to your immediate family, and you start to, you know, really open your eyes, and was able to you know, talk my family member out of it. I'm not going to say who it is, just because, but we're better now. But I had a lot of people that helped me. I did contact Lynette Vega, who I know you work with, Wendy, and talked with the crisis hotline. There's a crisis hotline that's out there. They were really good. Some other local people were really good. Our friend Rose Smith helped us out. My friend Eileen Bonner. With DCFS, you know, just a lot of people that helped out. So there is resources out there, and I know I hear it a lot that there's not the resources out there. But like Justin said, even the deputies are out there. Another close friend of mine, the best man at my wedding, actually was out with a pistol and was telling people he was about to end his life, and his ex-wife called me, and I. Immediately called the Elko County Sheriff's Department, and between me and the officer's name just slipped my mind, but between him and myself, we were able to kind of triangulate where he was at, and I was able to find him off of the Hunter exit with a pistol in his center console. And proceeded to get in the truck with him and have about a 3.5 hour conversation in the middle of the night. To you know, ultimately talk him down, and without the sheriff's department help, I would have never found it, and that's, I guess that's where I'm kind of going with it, where people don't think that there's resources out there, but there is, and the world is definitely a better place with all of us in it. People have their own demons, people have their own issues, but there's ways to your family members, your loved ones, your friends, and even the resources that are out there. Like you said, talk to your chiropractor, talk to anybody, your hairdresser. I mean, it's good to talk. It really is, to get those feelings out there, and nobody should have to deal with it on either end of it. So yeah, I'm got kind of long-winded there though, but yeah, that's I mean, those are some stories that are near and dear to my heart, and I can tell you 100% that there are resources in Elko County. So if you're feeling that way, if you have a family member that's feeling that way, reach out to us, reach out to Wendy, reach out to Justin. I mean, really, and you'll be surprised. People will react and immediately to try to get those people those help. So if you have a loved one, if you're watching, if you're feeling down, this time of year, unfortunately, when it's it's season of happiness supposed to be, it brings out a lot of those negative type feelings. And so if you need to talk, give us a shout, and we don't need to go down that road.
Okay, so we're gonna let Wendy. What is your involvement, and what are you? I know that you're doing a lot to raise awareness for suicide prevention. What are some resources that you know of, or things that you do around the community? I know after this happened, you really did get involved and contacted us and said you wanted to come on the show. So, what are some of the things that you're doing around the community?
Well, it's weird because, well, first of all, I want to say that, everybody has. I've got my gloves on because my hands are cold.
We have a space heater over here if you want it.
We all have a story here, and I think that ought to tell us that suicide is not something that is that uncommon. We like to think it's not very common, but and I think Justin has some statistics that he can provide us, since I forgot my paperwork. But it's more common than we think. And when I go to like one of the things that we do is we always go to that night out that they have in the summertime, that the law enforcement puts on, and we have a table. And I was manning the table last summer, and I cannot tell you how many people came up. They're kind of like, oh, should I go up? I don't know. Maybe I'll go. I don't know. And then they finally come up, and then they tell their story, like you guys have told your story about suicide and what has happened in their own families. They'll take some information, and some of them cry right at the table. Some of them, are pretty very standoffish. Well, I'll take it because I know someone, and so that's one of the things that we do. But the other thing, I just want to say that this is not an uncommon issue, and this is so great that we can talk about this because, as you probably already know, everybody listening and watching, there's a big stigma attached to suicide. We just it's something that somebody else has experienced, somebody else's family. Oh, that must be a weird family, a dysfunctional family, this family. Believe me, suicide happens to all families across the board. To all different kinds of families across the board: rich, poor, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It happens across the board. It happens to veterans. You mentioned a young man that went to Afghanistan. We have a serious challenge with our veterans that are losing their lives to suicide. So I think it's great that we're talking about it, because my personal opinion, and I think the research bears this out, is that the more we talk about it, the less stigma that we will have. There's a stigma attached to people who have mental health issues, which my son Luke experienced for a long time with real social anxiety. He was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. He also was diagnosed with major depressive disorder later on in his life. He had attention problems. And unfortunately, in his case, which happens in so many cases of suicide, he became an alcoholic. He self-medicated for I don't know how many years, exactly. And I was worried about him all the time when I realized that he had such a serious drinking problem. But I got involved with suicide prevention long before I was worried about Luke. In 2006, when I began teaching social work at Great Basin College, we had I think from 2006 to 2007, we had a lot of suicides in Elko County. School counselors were worried about it. We just had them over and over and over, and a lot of them happened out in Spring Creek, but there was just a whole rash of suicides in Elko County. And so a lot of us got together, school counselors, law enforcement, lots of different people came together. We had a big meeting. We called in Misty Allen from the Nevada Office of Suicide Prevention, who has really been instrumental in helping bring down the numbers of suicide throughout the state. But we brought her in. She started talking to us. We did the trainings. We did the assist training, which I'll talk about more. We did what we call safe talk training. We learned the school counselors got trained. And so it's been kind of a progression since then. And that's when I met Lynette Vega and Jan Basier, who doesn't live here anymore, but and we did things like we did our walk out of the darkness every year. It's a 5K walk that we do in the second weekend in September. And one of the things that Lynette Vega has been just passionate about is getting some suicide prevention training within the schools. And she has been doggedly going after that, and it's going to happen. It's really going to happen. We've got social workers in the schools now that more kids have been coming into the school social workers since the pandemic. They've been coming in and talking about their problems with the social workers there. We have a group that meets once a month. It's called Zero Suicide Elko County. And we meet as a group, and we try and solve some of the problems that we see in the community. Like one of the big issues that we took on, and that was kind of my focus for a while, was the hospital, how the hospital responds to people who are suicidal, because that is really kind of where people who are suicidal end up in small rural communities, is at the hospital. I'm sure law enforcement takes a lot of their people that they interact with to the hospital. So we focused on the hospital and trying to get more help for the hospital to really evaluate people who are suicidal, and letting them know that we want some changes. We want a better protocol, a tighter protocol for when people come in to the hospital that are suicidal. And they have responded. I have to say, they are making some changes at the hospital, and hopefully those changes will last. And they even sponsored a scholarship. It was in the paper this last summer. They sponsored a scholarship for in Luke's name, to help a social worker, a social work student here in rural, in Elko County, or any place in rural Nevada, to continue their schooling. So we've been focusing on that. We've learned a lot more about the veterans' challenges, and we're trying to get the word out about that. We will talk to any group about the issue of suicide. We're always looking for ways, and the other things we've been doing is trying to not infiltrate, that sounds like kind of a bad word, but we've tried to get into learning more about substance abuse and how that affects people with suicidal ideation, because that is one of the number one risk factors when it comes to people dying by suicide is substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or some other drug. So we want to become more of a presence in this community. This has just been a slow build, and the main thing is trying to get people trained. We had a training all set up last year for the assist training, which is a really good training. Did you go to that training, Justin?
No, I missed that one.
Okay.
Yep.
It sounds similar to what you've experienced. We do a lot of role playing in this. We do a lot of role playing in the assist training. We learn about what to say when someone says, I'm feeling really down, about asking that question, are you suicidal? Are you thinking of taking your own life? We had it all. We've done multiple trainings here in Elko County over the years, but we had one all set up, and of course the pandemic hit, and we couldn't do it. So that's our next big push, is to get a training set up. And if you can participate in this training, if you want to know more information about it, you can give me a call. But there.
Can you throw your phone number out there, Wendy?
It's 775-340-0268. 775-340-0268. And so we're always looking for ways to train people, just to learn. There are things that go on in the community, like we have mental health first aid going on for children and adults, for teens and adults, and we have safe talk trainings that we try to bring into the community. It's just a short, kind of 3-hour focus on, what to do, how to hang with someone who is talking about suicide, or who, are having problems with depression. So there's a lot going on. It's kind of a tough sell, because people don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about.
It's one of those subjects that it's kind of hard, just like Justin was saying, to tell someone, are you considering suicide? It's one of those conversations that, like, I don't want to ask that. I don't want to. But sometimes it's one of those questions that needs to be had.
Well, and I just want to add that, there is a myth that if you ask the question, that's gonna push them over the edge. Right. And that's not true. What you're saying to that person when you say, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? What that says to them is that it is okay to talk to me about that. And if they say yes, then there's a whole lot of steps to take after that. But
well, I think that's, to be honest with Justin, I didn't even really realize, using the proper, phrasing is really important, because, when I was dealing with it in my immediate family, my question was, you good? You good? You doing all right? And me as a man, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good, dude. I got this.
Whatever,
type
I got
thing.
this.
Yeah.
But if you asking the right question, like you said, it may trigger something, but it's not pushing you over there. It's triggering that you can actually, I am. What can we do to fix this? What can we do to help this? And what are the steps that we can take to prevent it? And I think anything that you can do to get the word out there, because you said a couple things there I didn't even realize were things in Elko County. I honestly didn't even know those were available. Those were out there. Had I not ran into Lynette Vega at the Igloo during a video that we did, I wouldn't have had her phone number. But when I talked to her, and then kind of she had told me what she was a part of, Zero Suicides Elko County, and then I had actually gotten her number, because I had dealt with it in the past, and then it came to where I needed that number, and I contacted her, and immediately she got back a hold of me. Hey, if you need to talk to me, if you need to talk to somebody else, here's this number, here's this number, here's this number. And it was within minutes. I was on the phone with a crisis hotline counselor, and the resources are there. So anything that we can do to help to get it out there, training courses, whatever, I definitely want to make sure that people in Elko County, because through this whole pandemic, that's one of the things that you hear is there's no mental health help in Elko County.
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out before we start moving on, one of the first things that you said when you started speaking, Wendy, was about how it affects every person. It's diverse, and if you look at this panel right here, we have a sports guy, a softball sports guy. We have a Hispanic. We have Wendy, and we have.
Woman.
You had to be careful with that.
You said it, not me.
You just went right over that.
We have a law enforcement officer. So this is it's so diverse here. So what you said at the very beginning, that it affects every wake of life, whether it doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, what your race is, anything like that, or if you have a great family, if you have a bad family, whatever it is, it affects it. So I really caught on to that because I kind of looked around and I was like, you got Hispanic dude, you got this guy, and we're just as diverse as could possibly. We're like a jury, like. Yeah. So, Justin, I know you brought some statistics and some resources also, and if there's anything else that you want to throw out there too.
She did an amazing job of covering everything that's going on in Elko County, and all of those people that are involved with the zero suicides they're just doing amazing work, and we're taking huge leaps and bounds in Elko County. I don't have the exact numbers for we call them mental health calls for the sheriff's office through the end of the year, but I can tell you that through the end of November we were at almost 170. And these are just people that are calling 911 and those types of things that are having issues. Unfortunately, we ended up with 24 suicides just in Elko County, and I kind of wanted to just break those down by months and ages because I think that that's going to sort of hit home that mark of, that it does affect everybody. So in January of last year, we had 2, 66 and 34 years old. March, we had 4. They were 47, 55, 40, and 39 years old. April, there was 1 that was 20. May, there were 3, 19, 80, and 44 years old. June, historically, I think it's one of those things where it does fall a lot of times around the holidays, but I don't know. June of last year, we had the highest of the entire year, and we had 7 in June of last year. It was 50, 18, 64, 36, 33, 76, and 65 years old. July, there were 2, 22 and 24. September, there were 3, 29, 21, and 42. November, we had a 57-year-old, and then December, and I pulled up all the stats right before we came in. I think we just had the 1 in December, and that was a 62-year-old. So that just shows you that it's not. I think that the stigma is that this is going to be, a lot of times males, like we were kind of talking a little bit before the show, in that like 16 to 24-year-old range, which is pretty common, but this just shows that this is across the board. And I can tell you from the law enforcement perspective, you're absolutely right. It doesn't mean that there's anything dysfunctional with a family, certainly. Alcohol does play into it, and alcohol is a CNS depressant. It's a central nervous system depressant, and though you may feel better while you're under the influence of it, it's not going to help you in the long run. So what I do think helps in the long run is absolutely talking about it until it becomes normal. And that becomes with anything that's bothering you. You have to understand that, throughout my almost 20 years in law enforcement, I've seen a lot of stuff. A lot of the law enforcement guys, a lot of the EMS, the fire department, they see a lot of stuff. Long-term PTSD comes in law enforcement just like it does in the military. The military just gets an absolute bombardment in 2-4 years, whatever they long to be in there. And we have a couple of our, and I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name on the show today, but Deputy Schoaf is a former Marine.
Schoaf was the one that helped me out on the call. He was the one.
Was it Schoaf?
It was Schoaf. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And I tell you what, he's a former Marine, and he's a big boy, and he's got just as big a heart because he really wants to get involved with that. And I can tell you, if there's anybody that's former military that's listening today that needs somebody to talk to that truly understands, call the sheriff's office, tell him you want to talk to Deputy Schoaf, and I know he's there for you guys. So, it's really important to know that, and I'm going to say it over and over and over until everybody gets it in their head. Talk about it until it becomes normal. That's how you deal with things. That's how I finally, after all of the years, because what law enforcement, nothing bothers me, right? I'm fine. Right. Same thing with all guys, right? Mm-hmm. And if you say, how are you? I'm good. Things okay? Yep. That's why you have to have that hard conversation. Are you thinking about suicide? And I think that when you finally have the courage in yourself to ask somebody that, then they have the courage to speak back to you and go, well, you're really reaching out. And, Just let them feel comfortable with that and let them talk about it till it becomes normal.
Absolutely. You know, I was kind of just going through some stats too, just to see if anything really jumped out at me. In 2020, or excuse me, in 2021, it was the 8th leading cause of death in Nevada. And the stat that really jumped out to me, it was the 2nd leading cause of deaths in Nevada for ages 10 to 34.
10?
10 to 34.
Wow.
We used to have a dispatcher. I don't know if you knew Colleen Piacatelli. I never got her last name right, but she got a call. The youngest person she got a call about was a 6-year-old.
Wow.
A 6-year-old that was wanting to take his own life. And, you know, the reason why you ask that question directly, are you thinking about suicide? The thing you don't want to do is say, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? You don't say it like that. You ask it right out, because if you say that, then they're going to go, oh, no,
Right.
I'm good.
Sure.
I'm good. Because what they interpret, what people who are suicidal, I interpret that as is that you don't really want me to give you the right answer, the real answer. You know, you want me to say what you want me to say.
It's like a loaded question.
So
Right.
let me ask this. Let's say you do ask that question, are you thinking of suicide, and you get a yes. What would you do after that? I mean, I know you want to be there for them, but what would you guys recommend to do? What would be the next step?
Well, first of all, don't leave them alone.
Correct.
Don't walk out the door. You may not feel capable of helping them at that moment, but just by being there, you are helping them. Look for ways to give them hope right at that moment, and listen. I think that's one of the most important things. Don't leave them alone, and begin to listen.
Justin, what's your answer to that? Also,
She was absolutely right. I will tell you this. Ask that question, and if you don't have the time, make the time. Someone's life depends on it. Cancel whatever's going on, call in sick to work, whatever you have to do to be there for that person, and don't go beyond what your own expertise is. Just let them know that you're going to be there for them, and that no matter what it takes, you're going to be there for them. And then sit there. You said you had a 3.5-hour conversation. It might be a 3.5-hour conversation, but sit there with them until they understand that this feeling happens with a lot of people, and most people make it through this, right? And encourage them that if they talk about it and get help, they too can make it through this, and get somebody on the phone, get them to counseling, get them to somebody that does have the expertise to diagnose what's going on. It could be a situation where they do need professional help. They may need some kind of medication, and let them know that's okay as well. And like I said, it's just clear your calendar and let them know that no matter what, you're going to be there for them, and as long as it takes. You know, it may be all night long, but you know what I mean, that's just be there for them.
Danny, go ahead.
I
Wendy,
was
sorry.
just going to say that you, like I said, Jason said, you may not feel like you have the expertise to help them through this, but what you can do is you can get one of these numbers and call them together, and you can be there while they're talking to someone that is on the other end of that crisis hotline, and you can be there. Just having another presence in the room often helps. And I think if you'll remember, Pedro, at Luke's final gathering, that's the one thing that I put out there. Because I know he had a lot of friends. There were a lot of people at his gathering, and he has a lot of friends that, that may have problems. And I just said, look to the person next to you. If you're feeling blue, reach out to that person, right? I don't know if you remember
Yep,
that, but
I do.
That was the main point of that whole thing, was to reach out, to get people to reach out. But so that's kind of the next progression. And sometimes you might just have to drive them to the hospital, and that's, if you can't think of anything else, that's what you do. And you get them to the hospital, and then just be there for them.
All right, Danny, you got anything on that?
No, I mean, just, there's a lot of stigma out there. I know A lot of people are afraid to go to the hospital because they think they're going to call law enforcement, and now all of a sudden they're going to be in trouble. And I want to get it out there that that's not the case, right, Justin? I mean, you're
Correct.
not going to get in trouble,
You're
right?
not
You
gonna
know,
get in trouble.
you're going to get help. But I have ran across that where people are afraid to do that, and I think the school systems could do a better job. And it sounds like you're on the right path with that. And I'm not being critical; it's just my opinion. I think they could do a better job, and especially in this day and age of social media and everybody's a tough guy behind that screen. Nobody ever the talking and where a lot of problems get diffused when you get face to face with somebody, but you're hiding behind a phone screen and everybody's the toughest out there. So I think it's right now is probably one of the biggest times in at least my life, especially with the pandemic that's going on, the social media world that we live in. This is very, very important. It's always been important, but I mean it's something that I think we want to help get the word out there, and I think we will continue to do that. So I want to thank you guys for coming on, and especially you, Wendy, for making a point to be here. Like I said, played a lot of softball with Luke. Had a lot of fun with Luke. His name's on our arm in one of our jerseys, and Justin, thank you for making sure you were here. I know you're battling a migraine, but as soon as we started talking about it when we had you and Itor on, you're like, man, I'm here. Just let me know when. So these are the types of people that are out there to help everybody, and help is out there. So if anybody, I mean, you take Robin Williams for instance. I mean,
Exactly.
one of the happiest guys on the planet, you would think, right?
Exactly, and that's not an overstatement.
No, I mean, yeah, literally. I mean, he battled his demons in the 70s and 80s, got past all that, and then, apparently was still battling things, but you would have never known it until it was too late. So even if appears happy and there's something going on in their life, have those conversations.
Well, and with some of the going off the thank yous for being here, thank you, Justin, for being here, and also Wendy, and for you guys doing this on a Sunday. It was actually I'm very, very glad that we were able to do it on January 2nd. Like I said, it's a very special day to me. We're going to be making some hot wings. You guys ought to be glad that I didn't bring you some, because maybe they would have helped your migraine.
Couldn't hurt.
It would have taken your mind off of it.
Yeah.
You'd be hurting somewhere else, I'll tell you that.
I'm a big fan of hot wings. So
These are hot wings.
I like it.
Yeah, David used to always make hot wings. We used to get together over at his house almost every weekend, and he would make hot wings. And sometimes he would make them normal, and sometimes he would try to be a smartass and kill us with them. So he and when he was, they were bad, and we'd all be crying, literally, because they were so hot, but they were so good, so we'd keep eating them. So now every January 2nd, we always get together, me and close friends and family get together on January 2nd and have hot wings over at, we're going to do it at my house this afternoon, so it's kind of a little tradition. So I'm glad that Wendy suggested when I told her that this was the special day, and she said, well, why don't we just do it on January 2nd? And I told her, well, it's a Sunday, if that's okay. And she said, that's fine by me. So I appreciate you guys being here on a Sunday and on this special day. And it's not just to celebrate David, it's to celebrate all of our loved ones that have been affected by suicide, and anyone that has been affected by suicide. So, Wendy, do you still have that phone number pulled up?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of phone numbers, and we have this Zero Suicide developed a resource card. It's just like a business card, and you can hand them out. They give them out at the hospital. We give them out at the schools. And if you want some for your agency, wherever you're working, I mean, and it doesn't matter. You could be working in a bank, which we're in a bank right now, but you could be working in a bank, and someone could pick up one of these resource cards. But if you want some, call my number, 775-340-0268. Or if you are struggling to find a resource, or if you're struggling, call me. But the suicide prevention hotline is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And we also have a whole list of community resources, private therapists, counseling centers, the hospital. If you want some of these cards, but we do have those resources. And I just want to say that, Luke, he was my heart. And he was a guy, and he didn't want help. I tried to help him. Lots of people tried to help him. He went to treatment, didn't work, went to treatment, didn't work, went to treatment, didn't work. And eventually he reached the point where he was hopeless. And I guess why I'm involved in this is I don't want anybody to feel hopeless anymore. In this day and age, it's easy to feel that way with the things that you were saying. But there is hope. Don't get to that point, and don't be a guy's guy that won't. I don't want to stereotype, but won't talk about it. Don't be like that, please.
All right, Justin, do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
Anybody that's in the situation where you're talking about being hopeless, it's not hopeless. Like I said, it goes back to the whole tidal wave thing. I think grief comes in tidal waves when something bad happens in your life, but it does get better. Talk about it till it becomes normal. And I've always considered myself to be a guy's guy. I've dealt with a lot in my life. I know a lot of the law enforcement guys have dealt with a lot more than I have. And I just wanted to, say the same thing. This happens to a lot of people, so when you hit that point, please reach out to someone and talk about it, because the world's better off with you in it.
That's right. And thank you so much for having us. I just really appreciate it, because this is the way, what we're doing, we're talking about it over and over until it becomes normal. And that's what individuals need to do to help themselves feel better, is to talk about it. But thank you so much for having us on. I really, really appreciate it so much.
Well, we appreciate both of you coming on, and I'm like I said, it means a lot to me, especially on this day. So I think we're going to finish up on a positive note. Jamie, can you zoom in on that slideshow? Is there a camera angle that you can get on there? We'll look at my dork self, my senior year, back when I was a youngin'. There's Luke.
That was taken in Yellowstone.
We'll just jump in on this one. There's us last year having our wings. And David was a huge Scotch guy, so we always have to have a little thing of Johnny Walker Blue tonight. There's Luke. There's David. There's my ugly self, my senior year of high school. Look like a little baby.
And that's when Luke was playing for the Hot Shots here in Elko.
How old was he there?
Oh, he was about 6 or 5.
There's Luke, and that's his daughter, correct?
Yeah.
How old is she now?
She's 8.
And what was her name?
Desi.
Desi?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are gonna finish up. Thank you again, Wendy and Justin. Danny, is there anything that you wanted to?
Man, I'm good. Thank you guys for coming in. Seriously,
Thanks a lot,
we will
Danny.
do this as much as possible, and whatever we can do to help get it out there, we're definitely here for that.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you for watching our community highlight on suicide prevention and suicide awareness. And we want to dedicate it, this show, to all of our loved ones that we have lost, or any of our viewers have lost to suicide. So stay safe out there, and thank you for watching Battleborn Media Networks.